Hey guys, as the situation in Nigeria gets tougher, the 2023 presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Peter Obi, has demanded an explanation of the series of borrowings by the federal government of Nigeria under the leadership of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. He say, waiting now, una won't finish this country. How una go just dey borrow money, una no dey fit even dey explain wetin una dey use the money dey do. This is exactly what Nigerians passed through in the hands of the former administration, also APC-led government, led by President Muhammadu Buhari. Money were being borrowed every now and then. But you cannot even explain to Nigerians what this money you are borrowing is used for. He also called out the National Assembly for failing to demand specific details of planned borrowings before approving a loan request from the executive arm of government. Obi, in a lengthy post on Tuesday via his account on the X platform, said it is regrettable that the borrowings have continued unabated without any explanation as to what the money is being used for. The former Anambra State governor argued that the Tinubu administration has picked up the unexplained borrowing culture just as the administration of ex-President Muhammadu Buhari left off. According to Obi, the current administration is not paying sufficient attention to issues of rational economic management, but is rather wasting public funds on extravagant lifestyles for politicians in power at the expense of ordinary Nigerians. He therefore called on the government to be transparent and accountable and stop plunging Nigerians into economic woes through excessive and unexplained borrowings. The full statement read, barely 26 days to the end of its 8-year tenure, the Buhari administration got the Senate to approve a 22.7 trillion ways and means borrowing from the CBN. In 7 years, the CBN lending to the Buhari government had climbed 27,000% in flagrant violation of the CBN Act. Indifferent to the illegality of the excessive ways and means borrowing, the National Assembly still approved the new Tinubu administration's request for the 7.3 trillion scrutinization of the existing ways and means facility just before considering the 2024 budget proposals. Please pardon me. On the 30th of December 2023, the last working day of the year 2023, shockingly, the President requested the National Assembly to approve the prioritization of 7.3 trillion being the outstanding debt owed to the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, by the federal government of Nigeria, almost at the same time as the illegal securitization was approved by Parliament. The President also sought and secured National Assembly approval to borrow another 7.8 billion and 100 million euro. No question asked, no explanations were sought as to the perceived purpose of these borrowings of within the 7-month tenure of this government. Ordinarily, minimum public accountability should require that the President and his administration offer more specific explanations about the purpose of these borrowings. But so far, all we have been told is that these borrowings are meant to fund capital expenditure. Specifically, the continuous securitization of ways and means borrowing from the CBN is against the law and against the CBN Act, which stipulates the limit of the federal government borrowing from the CBN not to exceed 5% of the previous year's revenue. The law also requires the liquidation of the outstanding borrowing before any new advancements can be made. More importantly, the CBN Act expressly states that all borrowings under the Ways and Means cannot be converted to debt or scrutinized if the CBN is the underwriter. It needs to be pointed out that the idea of securitization of illegal borrowings from the CBN and transferring the same into our debt stock portends danger to the future of our economy. It increases the debt burden of the nation. It is even more worrisome because these accumulations of debt are not being transparently and productively utilized or accounted for. Why this new debt of 7.3 trillion has been hurriedly approved without screening by the National Assembly, the immediate public accountability question is, can the federal government, which holds the trust of the people, tell us what they use 7.3 trillion to do? We have always been told that all borrowings are for capital projects. Can we know the capital or project, people's productive projects this huge borrowing is being applied to? What is emerging is a disturbing pattern of huge borrowing and affiliate spending on non-essential procurement, which are being deemed capital expenditure and are being funded with an accumulation of debt. For instance, a good number of these so-called capital expenditure items as contained in the 2024 budget are more procurement and luxury projects. This trend of lavish spending backed only by equally lavish borrowing is unsustainable and will wreck the economy in due course. So it needs to be stopped. Unless this trend is stopped, the nation runs the greater risk of running into more turbulent economic waters in the near future. This is to add more my concerned voice to those of many other troubled Nigerians. This is the time when we need to go beyond politics and partisan grandstanding to address the fundamental issues of regional economic management. I am afraid that the current administration is not paying sufficient attention to issues of regional economic management. Instead, an unsustainable level of debt is being piled upon the economy, thereby further burdening our already distressed populace who are bearing the burden of harsh economic policies not backed by compassionate, cautioning policies. So guys, what's your take on this? Don't you think all is not well with Nigeria with the way the federal government is really trending right now? Let's hear from you. Kindly share your thoughts.